गुड इवनिंग और गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। वेलकम टू गना शॉट। प्रणाम एंड सत श्री अकाल एंड ऑफ कोर्स वणक्कम। आज हम बात करने वाले हैं इंडिया यूएसए स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के बारे में, द प्रॉस्पेक्ट्स एंड प्रॉब्लम्स फ्रॉम अ यूएस पर्सपेक्टिव। आज तक हम अपने नजरिया से ये पूरा किस्सा के बारे में या पूरा इंडिया यूएस स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के बारे में देख रहे थे। आज देखेंगे यूएसए वाले क्या सोचते हैं, वट एवर इट इज, राइट। और इसके लिए हमारे साथ बात करने के लिए ब्रिगेडियर अरुण सहगल है। सर, गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम बैक टू गनर शॉट।
Thank you, sir. It was
एंड आई
always
कैन
a
सी,
pleasure.
थैंक्स अ लॉट। आप सबको बताना चाहता हूं कि ब्रिगेडियर सहगल गए हुए थे पिछले 2 हफ्ते पहले यूएसए, ये स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के बारे में बात करने के लिए वो आए। इससे पहले कि वो उनका जेट लैग उतरा, वो एक और जेट में बैठ गए। वो आज के दिन बैंकॉक से बात कर रहे हैं। So thanks a lot for talking to us from Bangkok. You've taken the trouble of speaking to us. I can see the lights of Bangkok in your background, right?
Thank you, sir.
But
Thank
I would prefer you rather than the lights to discuss.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, और मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूँ कि उन्होंने मेरे को ये पिक्चर्स भेजा है फ्रॉम यूएसए। पीछे व्हाइट हाउस दिख रहा है वगैरह वगैरह। तो जस्ट आप जरा बताइए ये क्या है, किस लिए गए थे आप, क्या क्या मेल मिलाप हुआ उनके थिंक टैंक्स के साथ वगैरह, एक संक्षिप्त में बताइए इससे पहले कि हम कोई सब्जेक्ट प्रॉपर बात करें।
थैंक यू। हमारा एक स्ट्रेटेजिक डायलॉग होता है यूएस के साथ, और ये स्ट्रेटेजिक डायलॉग जो होता है ये बोथ कवर करता है यूएस एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ऑफिशियल्स एंड थिंक टैंक्स। तो इस डायलॉग के अंदर हमारी मीटिंग्स हुई स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट के साथ, सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल के साथ, जहाँ पे कर्ट कैम्बेल साहब हैं जिसको बोलते हैं वो इंडो पैसिफिक का शेरपा,
या
और उसके बाद हुई एक ब्रायन हेनरिक के साथ जो जो है नेशनल इंटेलिजेंस काउंसिल का साउथ एशिया ब्यूरो का चीफ, और साथ में थिंक टैंक जिनके साथ हमारी मीटिंग हुई वो है रैंड कॉरपोरेशन, हडसन, CSIS एंड सिम्पसन सेंटर, और साथ में एक हमारे कंसल्टेंसी कंपनी है बहुत बड़ी, द एशिया ग्रुप, जो
ओके,
डीपली इन्वॉल्व है इंडिया के अंदर, उनके साथ मीटिंग हुई। तो टोटल कोई 8 या 10 मीटिंगें हुई 5 दिन के अंदर, और ये एक्सटेंसिव मीटिंग थी जिससे हमारे को पता चला कि व्हाट इज द core American thinking about Indo-US partnership, how do they perceive it, and what are the likelihood or what are the future hurdles that might come in our relationship as we try to uh, put in place the large number of memorandums. We try to operationalize large number of memorandum of understanding which have been signed in a what is called the mega joint statement of 6,500 words, and the fact sheet, which is a unique in itself, which has been brought out by the White House.
राइट। इस बड़ा क्लियर है कि आपने जितना यूएसए में दो थिंक टैंक्स विच मैटर, और जिसका जो नजरिया है और जिसका दृष्टिकोण है सब देखते हैं और उसके ऊपर एक्ट करते हैं। उनके साथ आपने बातचीत किया है और इट विल बी इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग कि हमें पता चले कि वो क्या सोचते हैं, राइट। आपने बोला फैक्ट शीट के बारे में, वो फैक्ट शीट आई एग्री विद यू इज कंप्लीटली यूनिक, और उसी का ये दृश्य है। एक फैक्ट शीट है जो व्हाइट हाउस ने आउट किया ऑन इंडिया एंड यूएस एंड इंडिया। they've spoken it of a elevated strategic partnership with the initiative on critical and emerging technologies, ISET। और मेरे जिंदगी में ये पहली बार मैंने ऐसे एक फैक्ट शीट बीइंग मेड पब्लिक देखा, जिसमें हर एक चीज, हर एक पहलू के बारे में विस्तार में दिया हुआ है कि क्या होना है and what all are is to be done and in what timelines and in what manner everything has to be done. I think it is something historic, एंड इसका संक्षिप्त रूप में क्या है मैं बताना चाहता हूं. ओवरव्यू क्या है? देर इज गोइंग टू बी एनहांस्ड इंडो यूएस कोलैबोरेशन इन फ्यूचर, इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है. ये पार्शियल टीओटी होगा जो जीए का इंजन डील में है, फुल टीओटी तो वो देंगे नहीं, राइट? और प्रोक्योरमेंट ऑफ प्रेडेटर यूएवीज थ्रू द फॉरेन मिलिट्री सेल्स रूट, आईसेट थ्रू द प्राइवेट सेक्टर, और आईसेट के साथ, आईसेट का मतलब इनिशिएटिव ऑन कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव एंड क्रिटिकल एंड इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज, ये प्राइवेट सेक्टर के जरिए आ रहा है. एंड देयर इज अ स्पेशल इनोवेशन ब्रिज बीइंग एस्टैब्लिश्ड, स्पेस एक्सप्लोरेशन थ्रू द आर्टेमिस डील. बट जैसे आपने बताया है, ये बहुत डील साइन हुए हैं, और ये जो डील तो साइन हो गए, इनको साकार करने के लिए काफी देर लगेगा और काफी कष्ट करना पड़ेगा इससे पहले कि कुछ रिजल्ट्स आए. इसमें ये भी डेंजर है कि ये फेलियर में बदल जाए, जिस तरीके से सिविल न्यूक्लियर डील हुआ था, राइट? इससे पहले कि हम आगे बढ़े, मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूँ, ये ग्लोबल मैट्रिक्स के बारे में हमने काफी डिस्कशन किया, 6 वीडियो जारी किया, जहां हम देख रहे थे कि यूएसए और चाइना के बीच में खिंचाव है, और रशिया और चाइना के बीच में खिंचाव है, और हमने काफी बैलेंस ऑफ पावर वगैरह वगैरह के बात किया. इस डील के पश्चात क्या हुआ है? इस डील के पश्चात यह है कि इंडिया और यूएस का खिंचाव और बढ़ने का आशंका है. साथ साथ जो रशिया में जो अस्थिरता आया, वो प्रिगोजिन म्यूटिनी की वजह से, ये जो रशिया और चाइना का जो गठबंधन है या उनका जो खिंचाव है, थोड़ा ढीला हो गया. तो इसका मतलब ये जो क्वाड्रिलैटरल है, ये और सुकड़ गया, ये, राइट? और ये इन फोकस आया है. और अभी क्या है कि जैसे हम बात करते आए हैं, the relationship between USA and India has assumed greater significance in view of the global, change in the global affairs, or rather the ongoing change in the global affairs and geopolitics. Right. इसके जरिए I would like you to tell you, sir, first, what is the US perspective on the prospects of success of these deals? We will come to the problems later. पहले आप ये बताइए उनका नजरिया क्या है, और ये बैलेंस ऑफ पावर में कहाँ फिट होगा, वगैरह वगैरह, so that we look at it. How did they look at it when they went into all these deals?
Okay. Let me first talk about the issue which is driving strategic convergence between India and United States. ये सब चीज जो है, ये स्ट्रेटेजिक कन्वर्जेंस के ऊपर जो है वो उसका दारोमदार है. What do I mean by strategic convergence? The fundamental point we have to understand is that although the United States believes itself to be a preeminent global power, but there are fissures within the establishment, and there is a reality check within the establishment that United States does not have the capacity of dual fighting or dual containment of China and Russia together, and it feels itself slightly at a disadvantage, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, which is seen as the primary area of future confrontation, because China is its near peer competitor, and China, which is trying to be a hegemon in Asia. Therefore, as the Americans believe, that while they have NATO to contain in Europe as part of the Euro-Atlantic alliance system, the existing alliance system of the United States in Indo-Pacific, which is based on its allies, the IP4, which is called the IP4, Indo-Pacific 4, Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. Although New Zealand is not a really player, but Korea, Australia, and Japan, it is very one corner centric, that is East
East Pacific.
Asia, Western Pacific centric, and does not have the heft to contain China totally in the maritime domain of the Indo-Pacific. Therefore, they understand that given the current or let's say challenges that India faces vis-a-vis the Chinese, the ongoing standoff, and the fact that the PLA Navy is trying to develop footprints in the Indian Ocean, and China is trying to move in our neighborhood through our strategic neighborhood policy, which I call an attempt to reach the warm waters of Indian Ocean through our neighbors, that is Myanmar, Pakistan, and also Sri Lanka. India is an ideal player which has the capabilities, it has the capacities, and if they are beefed up, India can play a balancing role in the Indian Ocean region and extending into Southeast Asia. Recently, what has happened is, apart from the fact that we have become a strong player, we have, most of your readers, listeners would know, कि हम 9 पेट्रोल्स रेगुलर 24/7 9 पेट्रोल्स नेवी के हम डिप्लॉय करते हैं 24/7 टू सिक्योर इंडिया सी लाइंस ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन. अभी जो है इंडिया जो क्या कर रहा है, इंडिया इज ट्राइंग टू डेवलप relationship with the peninsular powers or peninsular nations of the Southeast Asia, that is Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines and Malaysia, जहाँ पे आज की तारीख में जैसे हम बात कर रहा हूँ, हमारे डिफेंस मिनिस्टर गए हुए हैं. The idea basically is to maintain strategic balance in the critical sea lines of communication and provide a degree of assurance and security to the maritime nations of the Southeast Asia as also to the other Southeast Asian nations. अगर ये पूरा अगर आप ढांचा में देखें तो India becomes a critical partner with the United States with the heft, capability to be a strong challenger to the Chinese hegemony. अगर इसके अंदर इंडिया को एक इकोनॉमिक, पॉलिटिकल, टेक्नोलॉजी और मिलिट्री पुश दे दिया जाए तो India can become a very strong player, and given its democratic credentials, it becomes an ideal candidate for being a regional balancer, or let's put like the American like to say, a regional net security provider.
राइट. तो आपने 2-4 इम्पोर्टेंट बात किया है जो मैं दोहराना चाहता हूं और उसके बाद हम आगे ले चलेंगे. पहले आपने जो इम्पोर्टेंट बात बताया दैट यूएसए आज के दिन considered India as an essential and probably an inescapable partner in this entire Indo-Pacific region. And the present configuration does not allow it to dominate the entire Indo-Pacific. And without India, this is not feasible. So that's a very important thing. And India's capabilities and India's ongoing जो भी हम पेट्रोलिंग और maritime domain awareness वगैरह करते हैं, that gives you already a existing capability on which they can build, and that can be strengthened if India is enabled technologically. अगर हमें टेक्नोलॉजी दी जाए और कुछ स्पेशल कैपेसिटीज जैसे इंटेलिजेंस वगैरह दी जाए तो we will become a very formidable force. वो ये लगता है ये उनका नजरिया है. और दूसरी बात जो आपने इम्पोर्टेंट जो बताया है कि दैट इंडिया का जो फुटप्रिंट है इट इज स्लोली एक्सपैंडिंग इनटू द साउथ ईस्ट एशियन रीजन, स्पेशली बिकॉज क्योंकि हमारा जो गठबंधन चाहे इंडोनेशिया हो या फिलीपींस हो या वियतनाम हो या मलेशिया हो, एंड इवन यहाँ तक मैं बताऊंगा साउथ कोरिया एंड जापान के साथ, क्योंकि हमारा डिफेंस डील्स और बाकी रिलेशंस बढ़ रहे हैं, तो इंडिया का बोलबाला बढ़ रहा है. और इसके बारे में आगे भी हम बात करेंगे, क्योंकि ये राय जो आप बोल रहे हो वहां फॉरेन पॉलिसी में भी एक आर्टिकल डेरिक ग्रॉसमैन ने लिखा है, राइट. तो इस और मेजर पॉइंट आपने जो बोला है कि इंडिया इज टू बी अ बैलेंसिंग पावर. अगर आपको याद है कि अभी तक जो सबका नजरिया ये था कि इंडिया इज अ स्विंग पावर, यानी कि जिस तरीके से इंडिया झुकेगा, इंडिया कैन बी स्वंग फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू द अदर. आज आप बात कर रहे हो इंडिया एज अ बैलेंसिंग पावर. दिस यही एक मेजर अपग्रेड है जो हम पहले सोचते थे और आज सोच रहे हैं। तो दैट्स अ मेजर चेंज, राइट। आपने ये बोल दिया, ये उनका नजरिया है। इसमें थोड़ा सा आप बताइए, क्योंकि IP4 के बारे में बात किया, इंडो यूएस स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप भी है और बीच में क्वाड भी है। इसका जो मेल मिलाप या गठबंधन या स्ट्रक्चर क्या है, इसके बारे में कुछ बात हुआ है उधर, या
यस,
ये जिक्र हुआ है?
यस,
खास
ये
करके इसीलिए बोल रहा हूँ क्योंकि कर्ट कैम्बल इज दिस, लाइक यू सेड, ही इज द शेर्पा ऑफ द साउथ ईस्ट एशिया।
ओके, सो नाउ बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट सवाल पूछा आपने। अभी तक जो क्वाड का फोकस है, क्वाड एक्चुअली इज अ सॉफ्ट पावर अलाइनमेंट which is basically looking at social and soft security issues. Okay, so but we have a lot of trilaterals and bilaterals going on, including Malabar exercise, etc., but which are not seen as adequate of securing a credible security architecture on the both ends of the fulcrum of the Indo-Pacific. तो उसके उसके मद्देनजर रखते हुए दो तीन चीजें हो रही हैं। पहली चीज ये है कि इंडियन ओशन रिव्यू कॉन्फ्रेंस बुलाई जा रही है, जो बड़ी जल्दी ही बुलाई जाएगी। पॉइंट नंबर 1, उसके अंदर जो है एक अटेम्प्ट करी जा रही है कि जिसके अंदर आयोरा, ओके, इंडियन ओशन रिम एसोसिएशन, आसियान and Southeast Asian countries jointly, along with countries like Australia, etc., मिलके बातचीत करें और एक क्रेडिबल सिक्योरिटी आर्किटेक्चर डेवलप किया जाए। और उसके साथ साथ अटेम्प्ट करी जा रही है एक मेजर ओवरले ऑफ मैरीटाइम डोमेन अवेयरनेस, जिसके अंदर 24/7 information आए, not only of white shipping but also of grey shipping, that is the movement of the naval vessels of importance in the region. तीसरा एलिमेंट ये है कि हमारे पास एक हमेशा एक बात रही है और ये एक थोड़ी गिला रही है कि जो पैसिफिक कमांड है उसकी बाउंड्री जो है वेस्टर्न इंडिया पे खत्म हो जाती है। अभी ये
और
उसके बाद जो है एक वॉइड सा आ जाता है, बिकॉज ऑफ द सेंट्रल कमांड डज नॉट हैव द कैपेबिलिटी और कैपेसिटी टू दिस थिंग, एंड सेंट्रल कमांड बेसिकली फोकस फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान वेस्टवर्ड्स टुवर्ड्स वेस्ट एशिया एंड देन ऑन टू द मिडल ईस्ट। अभी एक बातचीत जो चल रही है वो बातचीत ये चल रही है कि amalgamation of the boundaries and realignment of the boundaries of the Indo-Pacific Command, the African Command, and the Central Command, to extend them to up to the probably extend them to, nothing has been decided so far, but probably extend them to the east coast of Africa, so that this entire region, which is becoming the focal point of trade and concentration of inimical influences from both from the Indian side point of view as well as the American point of view, in the backdrop of the Chinese and Russian alliance system that is coming up in the region, that can be countered. अभी 3 दिन पहले, लास्ट पॉइंट सर, 3 दिन पहले एक बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्फ्रेंस हुई है, which was this thing propagated by the Chinese, in which China, पाकिस्तान, ईरान और अफगानिस्तान ने जॉइंटली मिलके इस रीजन के अंदर वो हाउ टू ब्रिंग पीस, सिक्योरिटी एंड इंटरकनेक्टिविटी अंडर द एक्सटेंडेड सीपैक, वो बातचीत हुई है। तो इसलिए जो है हमारा उसका लिंकेज है ITU2 के साथ, वो मैं बाद में बात करूंगा, परंतु पॉइंट ये नोट करना है कि एक्सटेंड किया जा रहा है सो दैट देयर इज अ कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव लुक by one single agency over the
entire
military,
area.
security and terrain related dimensions of the region.
नहीं, आपने ये भी आपने बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट चीज बताया है और जो मैं आई वुड लाइक टू एक्सप्लेन टू यू नो और हाईलाइट अ फ्यू इश्यूज इन दिस टू आवर
Yes, sure.
ऑडियंस।
Absolutely.
राइट, आपने बोला इंडियन ओशन रीजनल फोरम जो विल विद ऑल लाइक माइंडेड थिंग विच इंक्लूड्स आयोरा, एशियान वगैरह वगैरह, ये तो बहुत ही सॉलिड गठबंधन होगा फॉर द सिंपल रीजन जो आपने बाद में बताया, ईरान, पाकिस्तान, चाइना, अफगानिस्तान के जरिए ये उस इलाके ग्वादर एंड इन दैट एरिया दे आर ट्राइंग टू एक गठबंधन बना रहे हैं। अगर आपको याद है तो 5-6 महीने पहले चाइना ने एक इंडियन ओशन का कॉन्फ्रेंस बुलाया
Yes.
जिसमें इंडिया को उन्होंने एक्सक्लूड कर दिया और बाद में ऑस्ट्रेलिया भी अपने आप को उन्होंने एक्सक्लूड करके वो शामिल नहीं हुए। तो दिस एक्चुअली काउंटर्स जो चाइना का जो चाल है, तो ये बिल्कुल डायरेक्ट काउंटर हो जाता है, वो एक बहुत बड़ी कदम है। दूसरी बात जो आपने बताया, अगर इंडो पैसिफिक कमांड इंडो पैसिफिक के साथ ओवरलैप होता है तो बहुत सीमलेस ऑपरेशंस होंगे और जो भी ये गल्फ ऑफ हॉर्मोज और ये हॉर्न ऑफ अफ्रीका और अरेबियन वेस्टर्न अरेबियन सी, उसमें जो एक्शन होंगे गल्फ के एरिया में, वो भी एक सीमलेस ये हो जाएगा। और तीसरी बात मैं बताना चाहता हूँ एक चीज सबके लिए, सब बोलते हैं कि क्वाड जो है जिसमें ज्यादा मिलिट्री एक्शन नहीं है, इट इज मोर ऑफ अदर इश्यूज वगैरह वगैरह। पर एक चीज मेरे को ये कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन हर वक्त दिमाग में आता है, क्वाड का एक्चुअल एक्टिविटीज जो है वो मिलिट्री और मैरिटाइम और एयरफोर्स के होते हैं और जो ये बोलते हैं बाकी चीजों के बारे में, तो एट सम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम क्वाड जो है मिलिटराइज होने का अंदेशा भी है, ये मेरा मानना है। ये शायद आज के दिन कोई बोले ना। सो ओवरऑल अगर आप देखेंगे तो द इंडो पैसिफिक आर्किटेक्चर एक नया सा उभर के आ रहा है। एम आई राइट सर?
Absolutely correct, sir. On Quad, let me also clarify one thing. Although in the statements of the leaders and the joint statement, the military aspects are not discussed or highlighted, but there is an extensive quadrilateral meetings and discussions between the military leaders of the Quad are continuing all the time. Recently, there was a meeting between the Air Force chiefs of the Quad. उससे पहले maritime chiefs of Quad हुई थी. उससे पहले Coast Guard वालों के साथ हुई थी. So the point we have to understand is that this is being downplayed purposely because of the ASEAN-oriented Indo-Pacific outlook, where the ASEAN is little concerned about the militarization and the consequent effect of the militarization on their security, particularly as then it becomes a direct challenge to the Chinese, and they will then have to make choices which they much rather not make about China versus the US-led security architecture.
Whatever architecture.
So the bottom line in this is this, that there is an underlying perspective of security, but for various reasons, which I'll come to a
It is
little later,
being
it is being downplayed.
right, sir. Yeah. So you could take it forward.
Okay. Now my point is, now that we are talking about this whole issue of why we are downplaying it, उसके लिए एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग पर्सपेक्टिव है कि चाइना के बाबत what is the American outlook and what is the Indian perspective. This is important to understand that for both of us, China is a challenger, but for both of us, China is a different kind of a challenger. For United States, China is a competitor which is trying to usurp American influence both regionally and globally. Therefore, while America wants to ensure certain guardrails-oriented economic and technological cooperation, despite it trying to bring in a certain degree of technological coercion on China by denying it capacities and capabilities. But it is remains strongly interlinked on economic issues, as Ms. Yellen's recent visit tells you.
Visit, yeah.
Yeah, but within the hardcore establishment of the United States, or what they call the deep state, they are very clear that China is a challenger and it has to be contained and constrained. So a two-tier policy is being followed at what of containing and constraining China in military and technologically, while keeping door open for an economic relationship. Now, this is where United States would like its security partners to militarily contain and constrain China and deal with the Chinese attempts to at coercion in both South China Sea and East Asia. India's perception is slightly different. For India, China is a neighbor. Although we have a problem on the line of actual control, but we also have a reasonably strong economic partnership, and we live in the same neighborhood. Americans are an offshore balancer. Please understand that they are not a.
Yeah, ये इसके बारे में हमने पहले भी बात किया हुआ है.
So basically, India wants, despite the fact that we have a standoff relationship, a standoff going on over the last nearly 3 years plus in Ladakh, India would like not to escalate tensions and manage the current relationship, however skewed it might be, without allowing it to spill over. And for that, it's the second reason for India to do that is that India is looking at the period of next 10 to 12 years through which we will have the fructification of large number of these programs which we are trying to do with America and other partners will start fructifying and create for India a very strong defense ecosystem and sustainable defense ecosystem that will be able to handle the Chinese challenge. So from India, escalation with China makes no sense. So therefore,
ये जो बात आपने बोला है, I just want to highlight keeping things quiet and I wouldn't say not escalating. ये I will give you something what Deng Xiaoping used to say. Deng Xiaoping बोलता था कि अगर आप 10 साल के लिए you avoid war, you become stronger. And agar if you avoid war for another 10 years, you become even more stronger. Say you avoid war, you keep avoiding war, and one day you'll become a superpower. वही रवैया अगर हम अपनाएं, तो अगर 10 साल के बाद 10 साल अगर हम कोई escalation ना हो चाइना के साथ, so you come to that kind of a strength beyond which China can also do very little. So I think that's a fair strategy which we are adopting, which I just thought I'll put across to everyone,
yes.
sir. Sir, yeah, please,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Next point is the Russia factor in our relationship. Wherever we went, Russia was always in the backdrop. Russia was always the Russian fixation was there. Russia this, Russia that. Problem with Russia. Russia has launched unilateral aggression against Ukraine, etc., etc., etc. But the point which is important is that there is a definite attempt to wean away India from over dependence on Russia. That's an important point. We have to understand that. The logic of their weaning away from Russia is this, that Russia is economically collapsing. It will not have the capabilities and capacity to supply India with weapons. At best, it will have the capacity to maintain the equipment that India has, and they realize that, and they said okay, they are comfortable with that. So they are wanting India to relook at their choices of defense partnerships, not necessarily United States, but try and get defense partnerships which are sustaining in the current international security environment, and that will help India to grow. And if they are Western oriented, then given the integration of the systems, integration of the spare parts, integration of the supply chains, that will make them a little more serious credible. The second aspect, which is also discussed, is that what are the strategic leverages of Russia vis-a-vis India, which India wants to exploit? The perception is that yes, Russia has been a steadfast partner of India, and Russia will continue to have a relationship with India. So will India continue to have a relationship with Russia. But the factor that given the growing collaboration between Russia and China, the factor that India believes that Russia can leverage is against China is overplayed, and it's not a very practical point of view. So they say you have to understand that. And in a sense, when we have gone to this extent with United States, and there are enough intelligent analysts in Russia also who are acknowledging this fact, is that yes, the strategic advantages that our relationship with Russia uh, was used to have are no longer there, and it is practical for India to have a good relationship with United States under the present circumstances. So this is
Right.
an important issue which I thought I will mention.
Yes, आई थिंक ये जो आपने बोला है वो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, क्योंकि हमें ये जो पावर क्वाड्रिलैटरल में अगर हम जाएंगे तो ये बड़ा क्लियर है दी दी लीवरेज, क्योंकि ये जो रशिया और चाइना का जो पेंचाव है कम हो रहा है, और रशिया इसमें जूनियर पार्टनर बन रहा है, रशिया का इन्फ्लुएंस चाइना के ऊपर थोड़ा कम होगा। और आजकल चाइना के अंदर भी यही सोच है कि रशिया के ऊपर ज्यादा डिपेंड ना करें, और जैसे जैसे रशिया वीक होता जाएगा, रशिया और इंडिया के बीच में जो रिलेशनशिप है वो भी थोड़ा डाउन होता जा रहा है। तो हमें भी देखना पड़ेगा किसके साथ हम आज के दिन जुड़ें। ये जरूरी नहीं है कि वी आर परमानेंटली विद यूएसए, पर हमें अभी आज के दिन वी रिक्वायर यूएसए मोर देन रशिया एज टू बैलेंस आउट चाइना। इसमें दो राय नहीं है। उसी तरीके से रशिया यूएसए आल्सो रिक्वायर्स इंडिया मोर टू बैलेंस आउट चाइना। सो इट्स अ म्यूचुअल इंटरडिपेंडेंट काइंड ऑफ रिलेशनशिप जो उभर के आ रहा है। आपने ये सब बात किया सर, आप जरा अभी कृपया बताइए, इनका प्रोस्पेक्ट्स तो अच्छे हैं कि इंडिया यूएस पार्टनरशिप it'll go bigger and it'll be balancing
Okay.
China वगैरह वगैरह. What are the problems and what are the issues which USA has at the back of their mind when they deal with India?
Okay. There are 2-3 aspects which we need to when you look at the United States, you have to look at the United States from 3 perspectives. One is the executive perspective or the political perspective, who are by and large aligned to what the President Biden and Prime Minister Modi has agreed to, and they are fully invested in that. The second perspective is the legislator perspective. The legislator perspective, although as the thumping that he got at the joint session of the Congress, etc., eventually will look at numbers. What is it in it for the American taxpayers? How much money is India going to invest, etc., etc., etc.? There are some already their program. I'm forgetting the name, where we are putting $1.5 billion in US investments, etc. How will this whole thing play out? The second problem which they have is the technology. Are we overselling our relationship with India by providing them our crown jewels as far as technology is concerned? Will India remain a reliable partner or not? And here the issues taken up by some of the analysts, etc., saying that you cannot depend on India to support you all the time in all your this thing, because India is not an ally, etc., etc., it has to be acknowledged, whether they say it openly or not, they rankle in their mind. Equally important it is that, although a lot of people will not say it, but let me say it on your program, is that some of our Quad partners are backbiting against us, because it is what has been offered to us was offered little less than this when the reconstruction of war-torn economies of Korea and Japan was done. I mean, technology offering was not of that nature, or the kind of relationship which is being built is not that nature. And then there is this whole angle of, slightly speaking, is got to do with religion and minority issues, etc., etc. India, and here also, India is seen as an outlier. It's not a white state. It's a brown state, etc., etc. You know what I'm trying to get at. So
Yeah, I
those
agree with you.
those issues are at the back of their mind. Third
So,
issue is
yes, sir. Please.
the third issue is, a lot of people are countering the argument is that India's growth story has been overplayed and oversold. They say India has always been an emerging power on the doors of greatness, but has always messed up things uh, going forward. And say that, how can you say it will not happen again? So that's a fair one, but everybody does the numbers. When you have, in the month of June, a President of the United States investing so heavily in Indian Prime Minister and as well as in India, he is conscious of the fact, and he's done his sums, that the political continuity of Mr. Modi in his mind is something which he sees as a huge prospect. He probably feels that he will probably come back to power in 2024, and therefore it makes sense for us to continue with this relationship. The third element of this whole issue is the academic community. Academic community is divided into various blocks. The South Asian fellows, South Asian Walas, as I call them, are stuck between India and Pakistan. They say America is abandoning Pakistan, is depending too much on India. India is not a dependable power. India has not supported us, etc., etc., etc. So they spin these yarns, and they also link them with humanitarian issues and minority issues in India. The the second wallahs are the Southeast Asia or the East Asia wallahs, who, like I said, feel that too much is being given to India in one go. Will India be able to deliver, given its bureaucracy, given the past experiences, etc., etc., etc.? So these are the various dynamics which are at play, and these impact also the going forward in let's put it there, operationalizing the agreements or the MOUs that we have signed. I'll talk about it later, but if you want to jumping in your
Yes,
comments,
sir.
sir.
नहीं, आपने दो चार इम्पोर्टेंट बात किया है सर, कि there is a issue. What is the status of India to USA? What is the status of this partnership? We are not an ally. We are only a strategic partner. But कुछ actions, कुछ issues like what you said, technology transfer, military to military cooperation, वगैरह वगैरह, अभी तक ये not going ahead. अभी तक जो हमें मिला है और जो हमारे साथ हो रहा है, it is more than what our alliance partner has done. खास करके मिलिट्री टू मिलिट्री कॉन्टैक्ट में. और ये बात, ये अभी मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, बहुत लोग बोल चुके हैं जो विशेषज्ञ हैं दोनों तरफ से, राइट? वो इसीलिए है कि हमारा कैपेसिटीज जो बाकी क्वाड पार्टनर से बहुत ज्यादा है मिलिट्रीली. तो नेचुरली टू बिग मिलिट्रीज व्हेन दे इंटरेक्ट, उनका कॉर्पोरेशन तो होना है, एंड इट्स मोर देन व्हाट अ नॉर्मल अलायंस पार्टनर आल्सो डज. And on the other hand, there are many issues in which the strategic partnership has also not come of age. And of course, we have our own issues as a democracy. उनका भी issues hai as a democracy when they look at it from the human perspective angle and social perspective and other issues. These issues have come up and it's in the open. And a lot of people have expressed doubts whether the India-US partnership will succeed. And there's a historic bias भी है इसके बारे में क्योंकि till about 2000 we were on the opposite sides. It's only 20 years that we have come on the same side. Or Pakistan is an entrenched non-NATO ally because that status has not yet gone off Pakistan in USA. So all these factors do come in, and these are the problems which we have to contend with. जिस तरीके से आप इनफैक्ट देयर इज अ थिंग टू ऑल द व्यूअर्स, जिस तरीके से हमारे अंदर डाउट्स हैं, क्या विल यूएस बी अ रिलायबल पार्टनर, विल यूएस हेल्प अस? बहुत लोग बोलते हैं इट इज डेंजरस टू बी द फ्रेंड ऑफ यूएसए, राइट? इट शुड नॉट, ये सब बोलते हैं, एंड दैट यूएसए विल लेट अस डाउन एट द राइट टाइम, ये हम सब बोलते हैं. उसी तरीके से दीज डाउट्स आर मिरर्ड ऑन द अदर साइड ऑल्सो. ये वो बोलते हैं क्या विल इंडिया बी रिलायबल पार्टनर, विल इट स्टैंड अप टू चाइना, विल इंडियाज ग्रोथ सस्टेन, व्हाई आर वी गिविंग सो मच टू इंडिया, व्हाई आर वी डिचिंग पाकिस्तान, जो आपने बोला. सो ये अगर इफ यू सी फ्रॉम बोथ साइड्स, उनका भी शंका है, हमें भी क्वेश्चंस हैं कि वेल दिस पार्टनरशिप go to its desired level to get the desired outcomes on a mutually beneficial basis, right? So the next issue is how do we tackle these, because given the fact that बहुत जगह में हमारा convergence है, बहुत जगह में हमारा divergence है, or we have succeeded in some issues and we have failed in some issues. So you outline the problems, you outline the prospects, how do we navigate them, which I think will be the most important thing as we go ahead.
Okay, sir, let me answer that issue. See, the two critical areas of we have to understand that United States is a capitalist country, and for capitalism, money talks and performance talks. So the issue lies for both of us to ensure that the MOUs which we have signed are converted into operational projects and operational like say cooperative projects and co-production. Let me give you an example. If we have talking about the 414G engine projects, we have to quickly culminate into how this whole memorandum of understanding will be converted into a functional system-oriented project in which how much technology will shift, what kind of technology will shift, what will be the first year engine production, what will be the second year engine production. 3-year period has been given with 65 to 80% technology transfer. What does that technology transfer mean, etc., etc.? What are our ambitions? What are their ambitions? The second issue in this issue is that there would be hurdles, ITAR, International Transfer of Arms Register. Issues will come up. There will be issues will come up in the Congress. There will be issues come up with some crazy guys in the Department of Defense, etc., etc., who will raise objections and would try and delay. But two things have happened which are very important, which most people are reading it but not fully understanding. One is what is called the just a moment, SOSA, Security of Supply Agreement. Security of Supply Agreement which is entered by United States with its preferred partners, which ensures that the items which have been agreed to by both sides are supplied without any constraints. Now, this is an important agreement. It has signed with 28 countries. Majority of them are European countries. Only one country, which is outside Europe, is Egypt. Then there is a reciprocal defense procurement arrangement, which exempts designated countries from procurement constraints. So, by doing SOSA and RDP, reciprocal defense procurement arrangements, attempt has been made by United States to facilitate uh, the procurement as well as the hurdles uh, uh, in the process, and this is further followed by strategic trade agreement, which will further allow the hurdles in the Congress and other institutions are overcome. Having said that, this is still not the final view. The reason why I'm saying that is that in our discussion on the AUKUS, when we were looking at AUKUS over there, we were told that it is 2 years since the signing of AUKUS, and Australians are still struggling to get the requisite clearances. This is despite having a 10-member team full time stationed in Washington. So bureaucracies will be there, and bureaucracies will be here also. Here also, we will have bureaucracies in which there will be interdisciplinary issues will come up. He says, "This is not my ministry; it's your that ministry, etc., etc." But to overcome all these problems, given the ownership that has been taken by the two national security advisors, attempt is
Things
being
will
that there will be an annual review by the two NSAs, and before that, there will be a 613 review by the deputies of the two NSAs to ensure that what are the blocks, where are the things being held up, and smoothen the wedges to ensure that we get these agreements through. So the period that is being looked upon for the 414 first engine to roll out is 3 years from now. And if we can achieve that with a reasonable degree of assurance, that will be a big achievement. But here I'd like to caution my Indian friends. Please try and understand that. Don't raise your expectation that they will give you everything in one go. Nobody is going to give you crystal blade technology. It's not going to happen. Crystal blade technology is the core, or a hot function technologies. They are not going to come up immediately. They'll come up by and by. They'll come up as we develop confidence, uh, trying to understand, as we set up thing, as we become profit centers, which is also an important issue. Once you start looking at the money, things start happening because money talks. And the last point I'm trying to put across is this: is that from Indian perspective, these deals are part of the Atam Nirbhar project, and Ministry of Defense and the Babus there, rightly so, will look at this thing is how does it perpetuate India's defense ecosystem. Now, that is where the whole thing will come up, and that is where now there are two contradictions in terms. India is looking at developing Atmanirbhar and upgrading its defense ecosystem. They are looking at as a deal to ensure that they will put up a plant, when plant will be put up under certain conditions, etc., etc., etc. There are likelihood of conflict of interest coming up, which will require to be sorted out. And this is not only for this, this is for ORAN, Open Radio Access Network. This is for semiconductors. Semiconductors, for example, 2.5 billion deal with Micron. Micron is investing $800 million. Balance of the sum is being invested by Indian government through its agencies. Issue is not about investment. Issue is land. How early the land is given. Procurement of land. Number two, water. Quality of water. There are large number of technical issues that we will need to have, and in which I'm afraid chalta hai attitudes, lack of state government, central government issues, etc., will come into play. So we need to be sorting out our own house also by looking at Americans to sort out their procedural issues. So I just thought I'll flag this.
नहीं, आपने जो जितने भी विषय बोला है, आपने बिल्कुल सही बोला है। क्योंकि ये 3 दिन पहले मैंने यही चीज, हाउ टू मेक द इंडिया यूएसए डिफेंस डील्स सक्सेसफुल, जनरल सतीश दुआ के साथ बात किया। जनरल सतीश दुआ वाज द सिस्क, और उन्होंने इंडो यूएस डायलॉग में उन्होंने काफी हिस्सा लिया। और ये 2 चीज जिसके ऊपर हमने कंसंट्रेट किया है वो है ये जी डील, और दूसरा है वो प्रेडेटर का डील। क्योंकि प्रेडेटर का डील है वो एफएमएस रूट से आएगा, और एफएमएस रूट में हमें अभी काफी तजुर्बा हो गया। वी नो हाउ टू मेक एफएमएस रूट डील सक्सेसफुल। हालांकि इसमें बहुत प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है। कोई भी इतने बड़े डील्स में प्रॉब्लम्स तो आते ही हैं, पर इंडिया और यूएसए के बीच में तजुर्बा हो गया। तजुर्बा क्यों हो गया मैं बताना चाहता हूँ सबको। कोई भी सक्सेस स्टोरी जो है वो हर वक्त आप देखिए, ये जिंदगी में एक फेलियर के ऊपर आधारित होता है। जब तक हम किसी चीज में फेल नहीं करते, सक्सेस दोबारा नहीं हासिल करते हैं। क्योंकि साइकिल में भी चढ़ना है तो पहले गिरना पड़ता है, और घुड़सवार जो अच्छा घुड़सवार होता है 7 बार गिरता है, 8वीं बार वो घुड़सवार होता है। उसी तरीके से इसमें भी फेलियर की जरूरत है। इंडिया यूएस स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप में और इंडिया यूएस डिफेंस डील्स में या कोई भी डील में फेलियर काफी हो चुके हैं ऑलरेडी। क्योंकि फेलियर बहुत उभर के आए नहीं, पर मैं 2 चीज के फेलियर को मैं सीधा बता सकता हूँ। एक तो सिविल न्यूक्लियर डील, जिसमें बिल्कुल हमारा दोनों का और एम्बिशंस एंड और एक्सपेक्टेशंस ऑफ द डील वर वेरी हाई, वो फेल हो गया। दूसरी बात, ये M777 का डील है जो हमने किया है, एक्चुअली लास्ट में सक्सेसफुली किया है, बट बीच में वो भी फेल हो गया था। और इससे पहले हमने एक WLR का डील किया था, जो मैंने उस वक्त भी बताया था। जो हमने डील तो किया था, पर INTP की तरह से सबसे घटिया डील हमने साइन किया था। क्योंकि हम दोनों के बीच में, इंडिया और यूएस के बीच में कोई तालमेल नहीं था, कोई अंडरस्टैंडिंग नहीं था, कुछ नहीं था। पर उसके बाद आप देखिए M777 का डील, जो पहला डील था, जो बड़ा सक्सेसफुल डील था, और मैं उसका हर एक नुक्स जानता हूँ। वो डील जो है, जब हमने शुरू किया था बिना टेक्नोलॉजी के शुरू किया, टेक्नोलॉजी का टी नहीं था। अब टेक्नोलॉजी का वाई भी आ गया हमारे पास उसका। उसी तरीके से जी इंजन में भी यही होगा, टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं आएगा, पर मेरे ख्याल में टेक्नोलॉजी पूरा वाई तक नहीं आएगा जी इंजन में। हो सकता है जी तक रुक जाए या ओ तक रुक जाए, पर वो भी अगर आ गया और एक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बेस बन गया तो अच्छा हो जाएगा। और उस वक्त भी मैंने बताया M777 में हमने पूरा गन लिया था। पर आज के दिन आश्चर्य की बात यह है कि आज के दिन पूरा विश्व में जितने M777 गन है, 155mm गन, वो 2000 गन है, हमारे पास सिर्फ 145 है। उन सब गन्स के स्पेयर्स इंडिया में बनते हैं, और इनका सोर्सिंग BAE के थ्रू इंडिया से जाता है। ये मैं प्रमाणित बता सकता हूँ, क्योंकि मैंने ये डील पायलट किया था, और बाद में भी BAE लोगों ने मेरे पास आए और मेरे को बोला कि भाई सर, हम ये क्या कर सकते हैं। वो मेरे से एडवाइस लेते रहे। आज उनका सबसे बड़ा एक ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन इंडिया में आधारित है। तो मेरे ख्याल में अगर हम ये एक्सपीरियंस, और उसके साथ साथ हमने चिनूक, अपाची और ग्लोब मास्टर, ये तीनों का डील, C-17 ग्लोब मास्टर का भी हमने डील किया था यूएसए के साथ। तो FMS डील्स का हम वी आर क्वाइट एक्सपीरियंस। और उसके बाद हमने प्रेडेटर को लीज में भी लिया है, राइट। सो वी हैव, आई एम क्वाइट कॉन्फिडेंट सर दैट वी हैव द कैपेबिलिटी। सिर्फ ये है कि ये जो आईसेट जो है, विच इज द बिगर डील मेरे हिसाब से, आईसेट गिव्स यू मोर प्रॉमिस। क्योंकि हम अभी प्राइवेट सेक्टर को ले हैं, उसमें भी द होप इज मच बेटर। सो लेट अस सी, वी हैव टू होप फॉर द बेस्ट। और जैसे मैंने पिछले एपिसोड में उन दोनों के बारे में बात किया, नेक्स्ट एपिसोड मैं जनरल राजीव नारायणन के साथ आईसेट को कैसे कामयाब करना, इसके बारे में हम डिस्कस करेंगे। और सर, माय रिक्वेस्ट टू यू, इस आप जो ये डील करने वाले हैं या जो आपके साथ गए हैं, उनको ये जो वीडियो हमने जनरल सतीश दुआ के साथ किया, प्लीज उनको दिखाइए ताकि उनको भी आइडिया मिले कि कैसे कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि दिस इज समथिंग पार्ट ऑफ आवर थिंग, हाउ टू मेक इट सक्सेसफुल. Making a deal is one thing, but how to make it successful is another thing. Yes, sir. Please, yeah.
Two more points I just want to highlight is
Yeah,
that
please.
when the G20 meeting, the President Biden comes to India, he will also have a bilateral visit with India. It's not that he just come for G20 meeting, but there will be a separate bilateral meeting visit by him. And during that bilateral visit, more co-production items are going to be announced. We were not told what are they, but I believe there are something or extended range munitions for 177 guns, and there are some other issues of that nature, but we are not too for. And the second part is that there was a long-standing overdue contract for 6 nuclear reactors in India under the 1-2-3 arrangement. The Americans are now
That
going
will
to
get revived.
Americans are pushing for its revival. They are not pushing for 1600 megawatt large scale reactors. They are pushing for medium and small reactors, which the Westinghouse can make in India. And the idea they are saying is that it's part of your clean energy program. A, B, they can be located not in the big metros, but in areas where it is difficult to produce, where there's a concentration of thermal plants, and you can replace thermal plants with this. So those 6 reactor deal is to be on the cards, and we may have to have problems on 2 areas. One area is the power tariff, which was being discussed and we could not finalize, and the second thing is the safety clause. The security clause for which we were not willing to compromise. We'll have to find some media if we want to have this deal through. So this is what I wanted to say. So if there are any issues or questions, I'm happy to take.
सर, इससे पहले कि हम क्वेश्चंस लें, ये आजकल मैंने शुरू किया है कि हम बोलते रहते हैं हमारे तरफ से कि यूएसए का क्या नजरिया है, उनका पब्लिक में क्या नजरिया है, उनका सोच में क्या नजरिया है. ये एक जल्दीफाई सीरीज मैंने शुरू किया. 5 पॉइंट मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूँ. तकरीबन आपने जो बोला वही है, बट उनका दृष्टि क्या है मैं बताना चाहता हूँ सबको. जैसे मैंने बताया, ये जो फैक्ट शीट के बारे में पहले भी बात किया, दिस इज मोर ऑफ अ रीइटरेशन कि ये जो फैक्ट शीट इंडिया और यूएस के बीच में हुआ फ्रॉम द व्हाइट हाउस, ये पहली बार ऐसा फैक्ट शीट हुआ है. मैंने कभी ऐसा फैक्ट शीट निकलते हुए नहीं देखा उनका और किसी देश के साथ संबंध में भी. राइट, इट इज यूनिक. दूसरी बात, साथ साथ ये यूएस डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ डिफेंस ने भी बोला है, they put out a document which says US India rapidly expand their military cooperation, और ये बोलते हैं कि this is going to be a transformational agreement where 2 of the world's biggest democracies are going to interact and take care of common issues. Okay, so यहाँ जो फर्स्ट पॉइंट ये है कि न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स में ये आया है ओपिनियन आर्टिकल, इनका एडिटोरियल बोर्ड का आर्टिकल है अबाउट द इंडिया कंट्री. इसमें ये लिखते हैं कि इंडिया इज द वर्ल्ड्स बिगेस्ट इलेक्टोरेट विद द लार्जेस्ट पॉपुलेशन, 5th लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी, वास्ट डायस्पोरा, एंड इट हैज ह्यूज इन्फ्लुएंस इन अमेरिका. जो हमारा डायस्पोरा अमेरिका में है. और पर ये भी बोलते हैं कि इंडिया हैज हिस्ट्री ऑफ रिलेशंस विद क्लोज रिलेशंस विद मॉस्को, जिसके बारे में हमने बात किया, एंड लॉन्ग एंड कॉन्टेस्टेड बॉर्डर विद चाइना, एंड it is in a strategic location in a very highly volatile neighborhood. So ये पहले हाफ में ये सब बोलते हैं कि India is critical for many things in the world, and that's what they say, India is a critical player. The quandary comes from the fact that they call it the world's largest elected autocracy and all the other issues which go with it, right? So they have huge question marks जो आपने पहले भी बताया है. Okay, now the Wall Street Journal has this opinion that the India-US summit has a great opportunity of forging great ties between two great democracies. This is a very good article which is written for India. The तीसरा आर्टिकल जो अभी अभी मैंने देखा ये फॉरेन पॉलिसी मैगजीन का है जो डायरेक्ट ग्रॉसमैन ने लिखा है जहां वो बोलता है इंडिया इज बिकमिंग अ पावर इन द साउथ ईस्ट एशिया और क्योंकि न्यू दिल्ली जो है इंडिया जो है जैसे आपने भी पहले बताया है इट इज स्टार्टिंग बिल्डिंग इक्वेशंस विद मलेशिया इंडोनेशिया फिलीपींस वियतनाम जापान एंड साउथ कोरिया सो दिस इज समथिंग व्हिच दे आर आल्सो लुकिंग कि इंडिया का जो फुटप्रिंट है सिर्फ इंडियन ओशन में ही नहीं इंडियन ओशन पार करके भी इन्फ्लुएंस बढ़ रहा है ओके तीसरी बात फॉरेन अफेयर्स में पहले तो दो आर्टिकल आए दो और आर्टिकल आए हैं ये पहले ही आए हैं एक तो एशली टेलुस ने लिखा अमेरिकाज बैड बेट ऑन इंडिया और ये बोलते हैं कि इंडिया जो है अमेरिका के साथ साथ रहना मुश्किल है तो जो अमेरिका जो बेट ले रहा है इंडिया के ऊपर वो ठीक नहीं है पर एक और आर्टिकल है पहले आया है कि डोंट बेट अगेंस्ट इंडिया कि इंडिया में बहुत डेप्थ है कि इंडिया विल डिलीवर मोर देन व्हाट पीपल कैन इमेजिन ओके और चाइना से ये खबर है फ्रॉम साउथ चाइना मॉर्निंग पोस्ट that India and US boost defense ties with Russia with China in mind and things are changing उनको फिक्र हो रहा है कि उनके अगेंस्ट ये गठबंधन बढ़ रहा है और खास करके इन्होंने हमारा और उनका डिफेंस मिनिस्टर दोनों का पिक्चर दिखाया है तो दे आर फोकसिंग ऑन द इंक्रीजिंग स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ इंडिया इन दिस होल गेम राइट यही चीज जो मैं बताना चाहता था जल्दी फाई में आपको अगर कुछ बताना है तो सर बताइए आफ्टर दैट आई विल टेक क्वेश्चंस a few questions not all
I totally agree with you. I mean, I had a point and now it's just not coming to my mind, but basically what you're saying is 100% correct. Look, between two big countries, civilizational powers who are independent thinking and who, at least if India, who believes in strategic autonomy, independent actions, there would be differences. It is not that India has not taken sides. When India was in trouble or when India had issues like the 1971 agreement with Russia, we signed a security agreement with Russia. Prior to that, in 1962, we sought help from the Americans. So this is nothing new. The strategic autonomy issue works in support of our interests. It is not that we will hold on to this mantra of strategic autonomy and then put ourselves in a situation of vulnerability. The period between now and the next 10 to 15 years is the period of strategic vulnerability, and this is the period in which the close strategic partnership with the United States, not only United States, with the entire quadrilateral countries, as well as our relationship with Southeast Asia, etc., are of central focus. Mr. Derek Grossman and we had a chat on video while I've been in the United States, and he was talking about this thing. In fact, we are right now in the course of discussing a joint project with RAND on India's growing influence in Southeast Asia. So this gentleman is a very, very committed gentleman, and it's a good article, and most of his information, etc., was some of it not most of it, some of it he has picked up from our discussion that day.
So that's great. I would request you, if he's interested, we can host him on Gunner Shot along with you, and we can have a discussion anytime convenient to you and him. It's an open thing, right? So with this, I'll take on a few questions. Right. I'll take on questions which are not on the list. Saying US sent their human rights watchdog under Donald Liu, a regime changer, to India to access human rights. And why doesn't India form such players to people to send to US to access US human rights? So you give it them back in their own coin, right? I mean, fundamentally, what he's asking is why don't we also take up those human rights and such issues in US, and instead of they only
Okay.
giving us like this.
Okay, I'll tell you something interesting. Donald Lu is he not a human rights guy. He is the South Asia head in the State Department. But his script to us was that ever since we have started raising the issue of human rights, the Indian embassy in United States have become super active on every act which is done against an Indian or Indian diaspora, or like the recent incident in San Francisco where a consulate was there. We are always raising issues and putting pressure on the Americans to act. And when things happen as they did, incidentally, in Manipur is happening, and the statement of the American ambassador to India, please understand that it is historically linked to this hard pressure on the Americans. Now the Americans are counteracting and putting pressure on us. So this is a game which is played, but the fundamental point remains is that the countries, both governments, has to be sensitive to the issues of minorities and issues where these issues can become unnecessary impediment in ties. So my view is that the governments are serious enough. Governments have the capacity to deal with these issues, but sometimes when they're dealing with issues, the optics are not proper. They need to have equally good optics while handling such situations.
Amal says US used China to balance USSR and created another peer competitor. Some US analysts say that they should not make the same mistake with India for balancing China. Does US government see this as a threat?
I try to explain to you what the different perspectives are. U.S. government might be thinking whatever it is, but I told you that we are not part of the China containment strategy of the United States, full containment. We are all in the policy of China management our relationship with China to prevent them from spilling over, while we stay remain steadfast, rock fast on the line of actual control, and will not allow Chinese to get the better of us. We are conscious of that. And we are also simultaneously building capacities and capabilities in the maritime domain. India's perspective vis-a-vis China is to remove fear psychosis from our neighbor and our near abroad from the Chinese coercion, and let them lead normal life, independent life, take independent decisions, and create what they call a strategic balance in the region, which is devoid of pressure or coercion of any sort.
Right, sir. The third question, India wants to do strategic alliance with USA. These days we are talking about de-dollarization. Why India wants to hurt USA on that front by making alliance with a non-reliable power like China. Basically, he's talking of our equation with China and the SCO, the BRICS, and at times this issue of de-dollarization also does come up.
Okay, these de-dollarization are very savvy words which are used by in like de-risking and things like that. Like, I try to explain de-risking and all are good words which are used, but in the hard in the practical sense, it is not possible to de-dollarize the world immediately. Yuan is not a very accepted currency. You please note globally how many strategic partners United China has. You can count them on your fingertips. So bottom line basically is this thing is that unilateral sanctions by United States is creating an unnecessary economic problems globally. United States is first. I mean, the pundits in United States feel, and this is the mentality of these guys who are living in an island and whose inputs about the globe are very, very channelized through the Western media, which gives them what they want to know. So they are not. They sometimes they are not aware of the realities. So the point comes up is that de-dollarization is something which is going to happen tomorrow, and people are not comfortable with the yuan either. Why would they comfortable
No
with
one
the
is. No
yuan?
one is comfortable with the yuan.
So,
There's no
so,
doubt about it.
so what will happen is you'll have bilateral deals, like we are trying to deal with Iran through rupee trade, we're trying to deal with Russia rupee trade. And here, the important part is, as a result, what is going to happen is that the country will start improving their export competitiveness vis-a-vis specific countries or a specific areas or a specific group to ensure that you don't have to do trade in dollars, but you do trade in local currencies as much as possible, and push the dollars to the backward. So this will happen. De-dollarization I mean, the dollar becoming the central focus of the global currency market is going to go down as the things go by. But I don't think there is any serious de-dollarization coming up and yuan taking over from it. So I think we rest assured, take it easy. I mean, another 10-15 years, nothing going to happen.
So, Saigal sir, Henry Kissinger said friendship with US is more dangerous than being its enemy. Should India not be more careful given the past record of USA?
Okay, you always get into a relationship with our eyes open. It's like a marriage. You, you always think it's going to work out for you. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So you take the pluses and the minuses together, and 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 you also have to be conscious about the timing. So at this point in juncture, I don't think, like I tried to explain, is that there's a Russia in regression, China coercive, global order in a flux, and for us, which is a rising economy, security of trade routes, security of regional stability are very important issues. And we feel that by partnering United States, and like the United States being by partnering India, it's a win-win situation. So that's how the cookie crumbles at this point in time. I don't think. Yes, you might be right in future, but from now, right now, as a good pundit, I will say I'll bet on Indo-US partnership.
That's fine, sir. So the next question from discussion is what Amal says is great discussion, sir. Very rarely do we listen to other side view, that too of establishment, something only General Shankar can do. Thanks a lot, Amal. I'm putting this comment up just to tell everyone that please do come and subscribe to Ganashot and have a look at it, because we are going to give you absolutely balanced views which are in the national interests of India and no one else. Right?
Absolutely.
We have no other issue. We have no political bias. We have no nothing. All of us who are going to come on this channel are going to be completely professional and with great experience, reach out to everyone. And that is why I would request you to think there is no fun and frolic in this channel. It's all serious issues. Right. I will take over one. We'll take one question, sir. Right. I don't see. Okay. Last question, sir. Frank Under, from this discussion, it seems US is using us, and that too half-heartedly. Will we be the next Ukraine, meaning next US meat grinder? There's a lot of apprehension in everyone's mind about how we're going to be dealt with by the US and how we're going to deal
I
with it.
mean, I mean, it's good to be apprehensive, but you have to be apprehensive with your eyes open. And sometime in life, you have to take steps which are important for you, and what we call a calculated risk. I think Indo-US strategic partnership, I wouldn't say it's a calculated risk, but it's a partnership of convergences, and in which both need each other. It's not that India only needs the United States. United States also the United States is getting 1.4 billion people's market. Which in the world is you going to get? Please understand that it's something. This is an important part of this whole thing. Economics is going to play a major role as the Americans are now pushing us to become a member of APEC. issues like that. So what I'm trying to get at is that yes, you can be skeptical, but you also have to take chances in life. And India is taking its chances, and particularly at this juncture, it's important for us. And we need, I mean, it's not question of we need, both need each other, and it's a partnership of convergence. That's why we think America is an important player, a partner for us. And we'll see what happens. India is not a pushover power. We are a reasonably strong power. If things don't go right, okay, we tried. I mean, after all, 1, 2, 3 deal, they went out of the way to accommodate us, no? What, nobody
Yes,
else was doing it.
yeah, right.
So
I'll stop here, sir. There are a lot of questions. Right. What I'd request everyone is that, look, I'm going to next week talk about artillery and how we have progressed in artillery. Many of your questions are technical in nature. You could repeat these questions there. And when I do talk of the M777, many of these questions I would be answering you then. So we leave it at that. Because I've not taken most of the technical questions and I'm not repeating the questions. So, sir, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for taking your time. I know it's rather late in Thailand and it's almost past your bedtime. Please do have a good night in Bangkok. And you have a busy day ahead tomorrow in your conference. So on behalf of myself and all those who are attending this thing and who are going to see this, great thanks to you. And
thank you, sir.
I
Thank
thought
you.
there are a lot of questions, and when you come back, we will take it for our discussions further. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, sir, and
Thank
Jai
you.
Hind.
Well,